He was on Benton Road, and they were backed up for about a mile. So he wasn't sure what had happened, but he was sitting dead still. So, but he is trying to get here. Today's meeting, we have one item on the agenda, and that involves an ITEP pilot matter that we are going to discuss. And I assume it would be appropriate at this time to maybe call on our director of our business director, or who would you?
I would say let's start with Mr. Smith. If you just want to come up
Fine.
and kind of give us an update of since our last meeting and time with you guys. I think some of us got to come spend some time out there in the sand, in the desert.
Appreciate the ones that came up. I hope the rest of y'all can come up. Y'all welcome any time to come up and see what all we got going on up there. You know, our sales tax numbers for February really, they've turned from say 60% of or 90% from a year ago, the big red company, to like 60-40. So just the sand sales by their sales, that y'all not giving up that for February, that y'all's part y'all would be getting, and continue, hope it even, you know, continues to grow, would be, what was that number, Kip?
It's up 53%. In the year of 2019, Bossier Parish School District received $72,000 in sales tax for all 12 months in 2019 from Sierra Frac Sand. Due to us diversifying, the last 2 months, you've collected $39,000 in 2 months from us, from January and February. So that's money directly to you, not split with the Bossier Police Jury or the Sheriff. That's your money, extra money that you can add toward those raises or add whatever, but that's in addition to what that's numbers that, luckily the month ended on Friday before we had this meeting, and so I ran the numbers for the taxes and so.
What would you expect that to be for the year?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask
Be
a question?
over, if we continue where we're going, it will be over $225,000 for the year just in sales tax.
To carry on that conversation, what would you estimate the percentage of sales or tax sales, and what percentage are made under an in-use agreement, which is taxed in some other parish, wherever the final destination of those products are?
Beforehand, it was probably 98% in 2019. No, outside of here. And then in the last 2 months with our moving over, it's about 40%. Yeah. So we've gone, yeah. And that was our goal, is to diversify. And
60% of the sales tax, or 60% of product is taxed in Bossier Parish, 40% is taxed elsewhere. Is that correct?
no, the opposite.
Opposite. So
Yes.
40% here,
We've
60%
gone
elsewhere.
from 2% to 40%.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And I think, does everyone understand what I'm asking? Or,
All the mining equipment, the ones that come out, you know, that's all still taxed. That's nothing to do with the exemption of the building we're asking for.
Because we're discussing the ITEP and the pilot. You know, when I was out there, I asked you about, you know, why you started building and how ITEP worked, and you were going over some time frames of how long it took to do this and how long it took to do that, and why we were looking to 2017. Would you mind kind of sharing with the group your thought process there so we can understand? Because I think that was just 2 or 3 of us that were there as far as the time for starting for ITEP and that kind of thing.
You know, nothing's for sure till you have that mining permit in hand. And it took two extra months for us to get that permit that we was hoping to get. So it's always a chance that you may not get the permit. So, but we had filed right there. We started working with, I guess, Rocky on it, on the
Yes.
exemptions, and then,
In July 2017.
yeah, July 17. And, you know, and it's a manufacturing process, and it was a different code in Texas from over here, and it took 2 months to get that corrected.
Well, actually, it did not start getting corrected until June of 18, when we were notified by the Bossier Parish that it was the wrong code, and that had to go through the Workforce Commission, Louisiana Workforce Commission. It was a lengthy process. And then as soon as we got that corrected and got it from the Department of Revenue, then we started working on the ITEP, because we did qualify for it.
And what was our numbers on our employment? We have the federal numbers on.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Our numbers on we way above, you know, our employment numbers that we paid in. What is
Our year 2019, our 2019 annual statement that's filed with the federal government, we had, or this is with Louisiana, we had 32 employees, and we paid in $1.5 million in salaries to the state of Louisiana, or employees here.
Just to make sure, you guys had already had to wait 6 months between mining permits and other things, you know, so that's why we went ahead and got started and everything there
Yes,
too, right?
yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Bamberg?
And I'm not, okay, so initially we were talking about an ITEP exemption and getting a letter of agreement on the ITEP exemption. And then we got something by email on a pilot. Is that,
You probably can explain.
I mean, we've done a little bit of study on that since we got it yesterday. But is that a pivot on what you guys are this board for, or is?
No, not really. So it's basically the same. We're still asking for the letter of support. The pilot is payment in lieu of taxes, which is very similar to the ITEP, but if the pathway for the ITEP, because of just the way that it all played out, is not happening, not going to work, then the pilot is another program very similar to the ITEP that we can take on as well. But again, it's basically the same thing, and it still requires the letter of support from you.
And I'm sorry, we're the last letter of support because you have to get all the municipalities.
That is correct.
So
Yours
we've already got
is
the
the last
sheriff,
letter, correct.
and we've already got the police jury.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
And I know we've already breached this subject, but the letter of support is for what?
The letter of support is just saying you agree, you support us going back to LED and saying if they pass, if they grant the ITEP or they grant the pilot, you are in support of that.
Okay, and I think the one question that we ask about being retroactive.
Yeah, so it's not retroactive, and I believe the letter states that.
Like a whole different conversation to me than the ITEP. Because I know, Ms. Smith, you said you were sending me the letter, and then the next thing I got was the one on the pilot. But is the ITEP, is there anything showing that the ITEP is not retroactive as far as money?
We're not going to do both. We're moving toward the pilot at this time. Am I correct? And it says down here, Sierra Fraxen has already approximately paid the taxes, but there will be no money refunded or going backwards, no reimbursements or anything. The letter does say that.
A lit. So we can scratch ITEP because that's probably not the direction that we're going at this point.
Most likely, yes.
It was my understanding, from what I read, that at this point, since it was not done on time, that ITEC is out of the picture. Am I correct? Did I read that wrong? That we're going pilot?
Well, we're still trying to sort that out. That was our initial understanding, is that the ITEP is gone, and now we're going to strictly the pilot program. But then we got some other information today that, you know, it could go either way, depending on which avenue we're allowed to take. but it's going to be basically the same program.
I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize we have Mr. Bump Skaggs from the Bossier Parish Police Jury. I know he has some words he'd like to share with us as well. Mr. Skaggs?
And some comments were made on that. And I just wanted to clarify for the school board very quick. Bump Skaggs with the Bossier Parish Police Jury. On the ITEP request, so the jury has never talked about a pilot at all. That has never come before us.
Yeah, we just learned of that yesterday.
Okay. So the spirit of our letter, which we sent to Secretary Pearson, was basically to ask that they allow Sierra Frac Sand to reapply for the ITEP exemption, not that we approved it. We've not seen any numbers. We've not gone through the formal committee process. Now, the numbers that I were given by Representative Campbell were good numbers. And if those numbers are factual, then it would be a very good project to do. But we have not officially heard or seen or voted on anything in favor or against issuing our blessing on an ITEP. It was simply a letter saying, hey, Secretary Pearson, would you please consider letting them reapply with the correct tax codes and whatnot. So I don't want that to get misrepresented as well. I spoke with the sheriff earlier today, and he had the same sentiments. He sent me the letter that he had, and it was the same request that we allow them, that we asked the governor, Secretary Pearson, to please let them reapply and then come before the three-party panel. And then once that panel rules, it would come before each body for a vote. And so today's the first I had heard of the payment in lieu of deal there. So we're not saying we're against it. We're not saying we're for it. We just asked for that they would review it again and give them another shot to look at it. So I don't want it to be misrepresented that the Sheriff's Department and the parish have blessed any of this in its final stages, because that's not the case at all. But not to say that it's not a good project. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skaggs. We'll go Mr. Bamberg first and then Mr. Bass.
And Mr. Skaggs, I don't think that's what we see this as. We see this as allowing this decision to be made in Baton Rouge, because prior to the prior ruling, that before they gave us the ability to make that decision prior to 2018, if we go back to the 2017 rules, that would be Baton Rouge making the decision on this exemption.
Yeah,
it would
I
not come
agree
back
with
to
you.
this
If
board.
it was retroactive to 17, that was prior to us, our bodies having any say-so in it. And so if that was the case, so be it. And if that's how the secretary and the governor ruled that they wanted it to, then we had put it in their hands. All we did was ask that they get a second shot at reapplying there, but we did not give any blessing on the final product of it if it were to come before us.
Okay. I was making sure we were on the same page.
Yes, sir.
I heard you say that it was going to come back maybe in front of you guys. I don't think that's the case.
And if it had been retroactive to 17, no, it probably would not have.
So just so I understand, the letter that you guys wrote in support of the ITEP, now as we understand it, the ITEP is off the table, so you guys would need to write an additional letter in support of the now pilot. Is that how I understand it's supposed to work?
Nothing that we took any action on addressed anything associated with the pilot program.
So even if we were to say yes on the pilot, they would still need to come back in front of you guys to present you with a pilot?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the fair thing to do. I mean,
Okay.
we have not had an opportunity to look at the cause and effects and all that from that.
Mr. Dean?
Mr. Smith, isn't that what all you're asking from us at this time is just a letter so you can apply and?
Yes, we're just really asking for, y'all support. Yeah, yes. I think he explained it pretty good. Yeah, that's what, he explained it very well, but probably better than we could.
I would like to get some clarification. Mr. Noah, you might have to help us with this, but a letter in support of reapplication, but with reapplication, who ends up making that decision now? Does it revert back to the state, or does that still come back to the three governing bodies here in this parish? If we offer support for reapplication is granted, then who then makes the final decision on the grant of this exemption?
As I understand the way the process takes place now, ultimately, it could still wind back up with the state. And so it's a the process has been modified, as y'all are aware, 17, 18, but depending on what the public bodies do, it could wind up back in Baton Rouge.
It is quite possible that this board could lose the authority to grant this exemption or not to the state.
I guess my answer to that is nobody really knows at this point, because this is a new process that has been
So it is,
developed. I would say it's possible.
okay.
Chairman.
Now, the other point that we were asked to look at, and I think this board probably is aware, the distinction between the ITEP and the pilot. There has been some recent litigation in Cameron Parish involving the pilot situation, and that was litigated through the Third Circuit. And basically, the cooperative endeavor agreement that was entered into between the public bodies there, the Court of Appeal found that there are some issues there as far as the validity of the cooperative endeavor agreement. And that goes back to, I think, the 2017 decision, the most recent thing we've been able to find. That involved the pilot. And so there were issues there as far as the cooperative endeavor agreement and the public bodies and Cameron.
Okay. And Mr. Bullard, go ahead, and then Ms. Bamberg, I wanted to ask you some questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of comments. First of all, follow up on something Mr. Noah said. Actually, we're now under yet another set of rules, and if any application were to be considered under the new rules, there now exists a right of appeal. So regardless of what decision was made at the local level, it could still be overridden at Baton Rouge. So we've almost gone full circle, and we're back to where we were 4 or 5 years ago. Secondly, just so there's no misunderstanding, we all have in front of us a letter from the Louisiana Economic Development from Don Pearson, the secretary. And at the very beginning it says, please understand, we are not seeking to move forward with their formal ITEP application. ITEP administrative procedures were not strictly followed by Sierra Frac Sand, and for certain administrative reasons, the program rules are not supportive of their application moving forward. Based upon that statement and a conversation I had with a representative of LED, ITEP is moot. It's out the window right now. So any further conversations regarding ITEP really is a waste of our time. They now have but one option, and that is pilot. And per the Cameron case, that is now up in the air. Is that even an allowed?
And that's why I want to have Ms. Bamberg step forward and speak to that, if you could, please, because I know you disseminated some information to the board in regards to that.
I did, and I will defer to Mr. Noah too, I guess for legal. I'm definitely not an attorney. I did send the board a couple of questions. Sierra Frac has been great with providing information this week. I do thank them for letting me reach out and request some additional information. I've spent some time researching it and thinking over it from the accounting and audit side as well. And there were a couple of things I brought to the board's attention. One is the Louisiana Constitution that says that we cannot donate, loan, or pledge anything of value. As a governmental body, we have to protect our public funds. And so if we are giving up revenue, which is what we would be doing, we should be receiving something of equitable service in return. With the pilot program, it's a payment in lieu of taxes, and that payment is supposed to be of a fair, equitable market value. But at this point, I think we're still so early in the stage, we don't know for sure what we would be looking at as far as the pilot program or what kind of payment would be received there. So I did ask the board to just kind of keep that in mind, and I'll definitely defer back to legal on that as far as the legality of that. But please keep in mind, if we give up taxable revenue, we should be receiving something, either services, product, students with MFP or something in return of an equitable value of what we would be giving up. One of the second things that I looked at is the amount that we discussed as far as what they had been paying in property taxes was about $100,000 that we directly received. I just asked the board to remember that was only their first year of payments. We're not quite sure what that will look like across the next 10 years. Sierra Frac doesn't even know for sure what that'll look like over the next 10 years because they are continuing to grow, continuing to expand, and they've got a lot of big plans and things that they're moving forward to. So I'm not sure what that amount would turn into over the next 10 years, so we just got to keep that in mind when developing the pilot program. And that was, I guess, kind of my two main matters that I wanted to discuss with the board.
Thank you, Ms. Bamberg. And I think Representative from Sierra Frac mentioned it's approximately going to be $225,000 in 2020.
For sales tax,
Yeah, for what we would receive. Is that correct?
that's the 1.75%.
Okay.
If our sales hold steady.
We're not,
But that's
not
sales
property
tax,
That's
not,
sales tax.
yeah,
Look,
not
That's
the
only,
that.
that's only the,
Taxes that we purchase.
that is what we would receive from sales tax revenue.
correct, not the
Yeah.
ad valorem that we're
Right,
discussing.
yeah, yeah.
Correct.
Sales tax revenue that we would receive as our governing entity.
Correct.
Okay,
1.75%.
right. I'm not worried about, I know that number, that's not necessarily the direction I was going. It's the fact that $225,000 is the equivalent of 4 teachers per year, and that's what we would be foregoing. I'd like to bring up Mr. Edmiston.
hold on, Eric.
So that's the,
Sales tax.
she's talking about sales tax. Now, the amount, like, we were looking at the 100,000 that we would be giving up in ad valorem. So we'll still get the sales tax regardless.
Okay,
Sales tax is not really on the table. It would be ad valorem. So if their ad valorem for 2020 is the exact same as it was for 2019 or equivalent, we would have gotten about 100,000, which would be equivalent to 2 teachers.
It's really about
Okay.
84,000 by the time that we pay what's not covered under the manufacturing exemption.
okay. Mr. Edmiston, do you mind taking the microphone as well? I'd like to make sure we have as much information as possible shared with the board.
I'm full of something, but I'm not sure it's information. Let me give you some background first. You know, I've been up to Sierra Frac Sand probably 20 times personally. I think the world of what they are doing up there and what they do for the community and how they interact. It's great to see something like that in Bossier Parish. But at the end of the day, I'm the assessor, and I have to value things. I've been the assessor since 1998. I was president of the association 2 or 3 years ago. I am the chairman of the ITEP committee for the Assessors Association. So fire off any questions you want to know, and I'll be glad to answer them.
One thing that I'd like to point out and get some just conversation around really with you is that there's no real way to identify or calculate the amount of revenue that we would be foregoing as a board. My hopes and dreams are that Sierra Frac grows into this wonderful corporation that has exponential growth in their revenues, and at the same time, we would be foregoing our share of that as a taxing body with responsibilities to educate children. Is that, I mean, we don't
Well,
know if we're
let
giving
me-
up 500,000 or 50,000 at this point.
It's hard to say. Let me give you a couple of examples, okay? You have to understand that ITEP is a mechanism that is used widely by manufacturers all over the state of Louisiana, okay? One manufacturer can have multiple ITEP contracts. Calumet is a perfect example. And they can have those ITEPs for years. Calumet has had ITEPs ever since they have been in existence, okay? So I can't say that if Sierra Frac Sand goes and buys a new set of $10, $20 million worth of equipment and they apply for an ITEP appropriately, what is going to happen with that ITEP, whether it's going to be taxable, whether it's going to be exempt, all that, I can't say what the future is going to bring.
And ITEP is not just for movables. It can be for real property, buildings, things like that. So it's hard to say what you would give up. I will say this, I know there's some talk about pilot. I don't know how far into it everybody's getting. You can take ITEP and multiply it by about 20, and that's how complicated a pilot is. The land has to be in a certain name. It has to be agreed on. It has got to pass constitutional muster. We're talking about, I'll just use the Cameron LNG plant in Cameron Parish as an example. Cameron LNG wanted to be exempt, and they basically wanted to be exempt from everything. Nothing, pay nothing. At the time it was under construction, it was the largest construction project in the world, not just the U.S., the world, in Cameron Parish. It was to employ 15,000 people. Every man, woman, and child in Cameron Parish is 6,900 people. Okay? So where are the rest of those people coming from? They're coming from Texas. There are no Walmarts. There are no Home Depots. There is nothing in Cameron Parish. So those people taking their money back to Texas, and they are spending. That's where the sales tax goes. That's where the property tax goes. That's where it all goes. The assessors have been fighting that. CAE is what they call it, Cooperative Endeavor Agreement, for 3 years, and so far we have beat it back. They'll tell you, Cameron will, well, if you don't give it to us, we're going somewhere else. Pardon me. Where the hell are you going to go? That's where the hub for all the natural gas comes up, right there in Cameron Parish. You can't go to the Sierra Desert and do what they do there. So ITEP is, if you know anything about ITEP is morphed. And it morphed years ago into something it should not have been, okay? That almost, if you applied, you got it. I'll give you an example. There are two flight simulators at the downtown airport that are under ITEP. Now, I hadn't been able to figure out what they manufacture. I guess they manufacture pilots, but I'm not sure of that. What L&D will tell you is that there's a manufacturing company that makes helicopters. They get ITEP, and so these simulators, but the simulators are owned by a whole different company. So if you're going to give the ITEP to the simulator operator, why not give it to the clothing manufacturer that makes the flight suits for the people that fly the plane, the people that sell their groceries and all that. So it is, ITEP was designed as an incentive to get people here, to get a business here that you cannot get, like a automotive manufacturing plant. That was what it was designed to do. I was listening to the radio last night. ITEP was on Kill Radio last night talking about it. I'm for them. I hope they take money out of there in boxcars. That's my hope, okay? But ITEP is very complicated. Pilot is even more complicated. There is one in Bossier Parish, one, and it happens to be on the other side of the river in the city of Shreveport. And the Industrial Board of Shreveport approved that pilot program for Coates Bluff apartment complex. Bossier had no say, no vote, can't do nothing about it. And it's for an apartment complex. Now, they're all up and down Airline and Benton Road, and I don't know of any of them that get those breaks, but they are extremely complicated. But anyway.
Hamburg?
I guess I got a question for
Remember,
Mr.
I knew
Smith.
you when you were young.
Do what?
Remember, I knew you when you were.
That's why I'm asking Mr. Smith. I'm not tackling you right now. This may be a question for whoever's on the team, but based on this not being the ITEP that we thought it was, and you got to go, apparently it sounds like you need to go back and get a new letter from police jury for the pilot and the sheriff's department for the pilot. does that slow this process where we're not held to Thursday night trying to make a decision? Or is this something that we're able to possibly, I know we did this last time, but possibly table?
Probably answer that question.
Okay.
Okay,
Now, you stepped into this one. You stepped in it.
that's all right.
Now, go for it.
There is a little-known committee that's in every parish in the state of Louisiana. Some cities have them. They are industrial boards of commerce. Bossier Parish has one. Can't tell you off the top of my head who the members are. Bump may know who the members are. I think some of them are appointed by the police jury, some of them are appointed by the city. That board in and of itself has the authority to do a pilot program. They don't need you. They don't need the police jury. They don't need the sheriff. They don't need the city of Bossier. All by themselves, they can do that. So.
But that said, the cooperative endeavor agreement would require approval from the tax recipients because we would be foregoing that revenue. They cannot give away our revenue without our approval. They can approve a pilot, but without that cooperative endeavor agreement, I don't think there's no substance to it.
Yeah.
You can say, I've got a pilot.
The city of Shreveport Industrial Board gave away that apartment complex. Nobody in Bossier signed anything.
I'll let Mr. Bamberg finish his
Okay.
piece.
So I didn't know if the time frame, and here's what I'm getting to. This pilot seems very encumbering. Attorneys are telling us they got things going on. Ms. Bamberg is telling us things. Are we still held to, I mean, are y'all still holding us to Thursday? Are y'all trying to do something Friday? Or is this something that it sounds like it possibly may give us some more time to get our people?
Told to move forward as expected, to ask you for the letter and to move forward like we were going. Now, we did not get clarification yet on whether Thursday is our day or Friday is our day. So we won't know that until tomorrow.
Yeah, Bobby, maybe you can clarify. I mean, I hope this time next year we could sit here and our sales have went up. Y'all not giving up sales tax, and this went up to where we can cover that 1.3 million. Y'all need to give these teachers pay. It'd be good for all of us. I mean, this is just the property tax. Is that not, Bobby?
That is,
yeah. So
that is correct.
Yeah, the apartments and all that it's been issued these ITIP, they're not generating a sales tax like we are with sales. I mean, our goal is for every dollar we can in sales stay in Bossier Parish, you know. That's why if you look at our invoices for equipment rental, it's Bossier Parish that y'all get a part of. It's not Texas. We're renting through Bossier, even though it may be from Kirby Smith in Dallas, it's Bossier Parish tax on them invoices. Am I correct? And you've seen it.
Yeah.
And we went through an audit and Bobby's seen
Yeah,
it.
let me clarify one thing too, that when you say how much property tax does Sierra Frac Sand pay, and you get those numbers, there is a lot other property tax out there that you're not seeing, because let's say they're leasing from John Deere, whatever, and John Deere is paying the property tax. Now, they may be paying it through a lease, but it's not coming through us. It's John Deere gets the bill, John Deere pays the bill. So I know a lot of the track hose, I think those off-road dump trucks.
Yeah.
I give Dale the list.
Right. I know that at one time y'all had a liquefied natural gas.
Yes.
Liquefied natural gas was owned by a third party. So there are other things out there that pay property tax that's hard to quantify, because when we do John Deere's, we're getting all John Deere's rentals all over Bossier Parish. We're not just getting Sierra Frac Sands. We're getting everybody's in that. But I'm gonna riddle you this, and Ms. Smith makes up a good point, okay? If giving away taxes are such a good idea, okay, why don't we give away sales tax? Why don't we exempt sales tax? And anybody want to venture the guess? Because I can tell you the answer. The state's in the sales tax business. They're not in the property tax business, okay? So they're not going to give up their piece of the pie, but they don't mind you giving up your piece of the pie. And all that money all property tax is typically local. Now, we can sit up here and talk about sales tax till we're blue in the face. You know how much sales tax the assessor's office gets? 0. How much does fire district, I think that's 7, get? 0. Waterway Commission, 0. Black Bayou, 0. Port, 0. Y'all get sales tax. Sheriff gets sales tax. Police jury gets sales tax. But the rest of us don't. We have to make it on property taxes. And, you know, I just want to point that out, that the state is giving away our money. They're not giving away their money. And quite frankly, I can get fired up about it if I'm not careful, but it upsets me. They could just as easily give up the sales tax.
Of the board, Mr. Edmiston, can you give us an idea of the property tax that we would be waiving?
I want to say, and number one, I don't know what's asking to be exempt, okay? So I have no clue. $80,000 in taxes a year. So,
Let's clarify that. That's 80,000, assuming an ITEP, 80%. Under the current ITEP rules, it's 80% is exempt. Is that what you're saying?
No, we're saying 80,000, because if you're beginning, we paid 100,000 to the school district.
but you're just talking about their money. You're not talking about all the money. No. Yeah, all the money's over $200,000.
16,000 of it would not be covered under a manufacturing exemption. It's not everything that's taxed out there would go under it, and we're being, that would be our.
Mr. Bass?
Mr. Noah, this is a question for you, sir. Ms. Bamberg brought up a point, and I'm not an attorney either. I don't understand the legal ruling that she brought up, but basically what she's saying is we can't forego taxes without receiving something of value in return. So my question to you is, based on what she's saying, is there a legal ruling or precedent or something saying that we can do this? I mean, what is the law? I mean, Ms. Bamberg's not an attorney, she said, but she said you may be able to give us some clarification on what we can and can't do, or what we would need to or not need to do.
Yes, sir. There is a provision in the Louisiana Constitution that probably most of y'all as school board members are well aware of, but it's the outright prohibition against donation of public funds. And the Constitution says that a public body cannot give away or donate anything of value, public funds, without receiving some commensurate value in return. And that's always the issue. So every situation is different, and every case is going to be different. And so there's not going to be any one thing you can point to other than that constitutional provision that says you can't give away or donate public funds. And so there are numerous cases, there's numerous attorney general's opinions, so everything is going to be decided, you know, on its own facts and its own merits. But that's the cardinal principle there, is unless you get something back of commensurate value, then the courts have said many times that that's a prohibited transaction. You cannot do that.
Legally, we cannot forego this. Is that, am I understanding that correct?
You cannot forego it unless you get something back in return, some value for it. In other words, if you forego the property tax, then there has to be something that comes back the other way.
So, well, but those jobs, so I guess that's my question, those jobs are what the school board is getting in return? Those jobs?
See, that's the issue, that's the question. Who's getting the value of that? Is the school board getting the value of that, or is somebody else getting the value of that? And again, that's what all this litigation has been about, you know, down through the years, is who's receiving the value. Is that a direct benefit to the school board, or is it a benefit to the community? Well, if it's a benefit to the community, then that's not a benefit to the school board. There are Attorney General's opinions, and there are several of them that say, and admittedly, they're sort of all over the board, but the fundamental principle is, with the Attorney General's opinions, is a school board, you know, is not in the business of economic development. A school board is in the business of educating children. I think Mr. Newman said that a few minutes ago. That's the constitutional purpose of a school board is to educate children. You know, it's not economic development. That may be some other public body's responsibility, but that's not the responsibility of the school board as a public body to encourage, promote economic development. That's just not.
So based on that statement, what you're telling us is we can't do this, or that we'd have to ask the Attorney General for an opinion on whether we can do this?
I think you need to know all the facts first. You need to know the benefit, what that's going to be in dollars. The specifics have to be known by the school board before the school board goes any farther with it. And that's certainly a very viable option, is to, based on a certain set of facts, and the Attorney General's office is just like lawyers are. They're going to want to offer an opinion based on a certain set of facts, because every situation is different. And so to ask the Attorney General's office for an opinion would be a very viable, reasonable thing to do, but you're going to have to present a scenario to them to say, if we go forward with this and these facts, would this be a constitutionally allowable situation based on these facts under the provisions of Louisiana?
So do we have enough facts to present that?
I don't know that. I mean, it sounds like to me it's still in the process. I mean, I don't know what facts y'all do. Based on the presentation tonight, I don't know if anybody knows that, but I think that would have to be the issue. These are the facts, and under these factual scenarios, you know, would it satisfy constitutional muster? And that's what y'all are held to, is, you know, the constitutional requirements. And again, I haven't seen any handouts, and the folks from the applicant, they probably are in a stage that this is an ongoing process, but I would think y'all would need to know more facts before y'all could proceed forward with that.
Mr. Backhouse and then Mr. Bullard.
I feel like we're in a big hurry here. Could you tell me if we don't make a decision at this time, can they come back next year or the next year? Is it one-time delay? Anybody that can answer that?
Well, I mean, I think the ITEP situation, that's
Yeah,
all.
if they're wanting to move towards a pilot, there's nothing that, in my opinion, that prohibits them from moving through that process right now. Okay, that they can get with LED and Rocky. I was trying to think, Martinez in Shreveport, and yeah, what's his?
Rocky is the custodian of the industrial district here, and I think there's 4 or 5 board members that are local Bossier folks on that, so
Right.
that would be the pathway to go.
It would go through them. They would make a vote. To my knowledge, they only meet like one time a year because they're required to, just to be active, but they haven't met. Probably if they sold industrial property, they would meet or something like that. But I think, you know, just letting them, I mean, the pilot part is too new to make, in my opinion, to make a decision tonight. Let them move through, let them get the information, let them do what they got to do. Let Rocky come here and make his case of why it's a good deal, or how he thinks it can work, what it would require of all the governing bodies to put it together. and do all that. That would be my opinion.
Come back 6 months from now, a year from now, or? Yeah, I mean, their bill's gonna be due by December 31st, but I'm saying if this process goes through and all this is approved before the end of the year,
But they've been in business, what, 3 years? They've, 4?
We've been trying to get this, sir. And, I mean, what if we wasn't up there? I mean, what other business is gonna come to Plaindale and do what we done? Come on. I'm just asking for y'all's support.
been here on this, so
All right.
I'm not quite finished yet.
I'm sorry, sir, I apologize.
That's all right.
You good?
So, to answer my question, they can come back next week, next month, 6 months, Mr. Edmiston? All right, thank you. Thank you.
And I apologize, I didn't mean to step in front of you, sir.
That's fine. But
Mr. Dean?
sounds like with it, you can apply for this and possibly get it without us writing a letter. But you've had the police jury and the sheriff's department support you. And you've done great things with us. So why not a letter from us supporting them also? I don't see where if it's just, you've still got to go through the process of the application. All you need is just a letter.
Yes, sir.
And you may not even need the letter, but it would look, in my opinion, it would look like.
We just go back to in Don Pearson's letter that you guys have, one of the last sentences says that we would need your support in order to provide a clear path forward to establish the pilot alternative. So that was where we were told we still need the letter of support. Regardless of ITEP or pilot, we would still need your letter of support.
Mr. Bass?
I guess where I'm confused is based on what Bobby just said and running through those facts of what our attorney said that we would even have to get an opinion on. I'm having difficulty understanding what it is that we're supporting without all those facts. So it's not that I'm for you, against you, you know, I don't want to make this difficult, but we're being asked to provide a letter of support, and I don't know what I'm supporting. I don't know how much tax revenue we're giving up. I don't know how much, I don't know any of the facts, and to be quite honest, it's not my area of expertise to determine those. Based on what Mr. Edmondson just said, the people that would be in charge of determining those facts would be able to do that and then bring it back to us. Am I understanding that right, Mr. Edmondson?
I would think so. I don't know if Bump's ever endeavored in the industrial board or not, but it would all go through Rocky and the industrial board.
And let me be real clear, you are wonderful people. Thank you so much for what you've done for our school system. I'm not trying to belittle that. I'm not trying to sound ungrateful from the stage. I very much thank you for what you've done for Plaindale and the other schools up there. The part that I'm struggling with is I don't know what I'm supporting. I don't know what I'm recommending. I don't know the facts of what we're being asked to do. And based on Mr. Edmondson's statement that a pilot's 20 times more complicated than an ITEP, when we were struggling to understand what we were being asked for an ITEP, I personally just feel like we need some more information. And I'm sorry if that puts you guys in a bad spot. I don't want to do that, but I still don't have any of the facts for what we're looking for.
And I think that's one of the, that's the problem for you as well as us, is that the process has been very convoluted and no one really understands it. Because what we were told was we needed the letter before we could move forward, before we should even start providing all of those details that puts teeth in it, that you can see what it is, that there was no point in doing that until we got the letter from you. So
is that under the ITEP rules or the new pilot rules?
The new pilot rules.
Okay.
So we've, it's just kind of a vicious cycle, right? everyone's confused about what the first process or what the first step is in the process. But that is what we were told, was that in order to move forward with anything, with the pilot, with anything, we needed that letter of approval from you, and then we could start the process of providing documentation and information regarding the pilot.
Mr. Noah, is that how you understand it? That it's going to work from a legal perspective? Is that what we're supposed to do?
I know the requirements for the ITIP as far as that procedure, but as Mr. Bullard pointed out, and I think the sister talked about, those rules have been modified a couple times recently. I think Mr. Bullard said as recently as 2018.
2020,
Yeah,
19, late 19 or early 20.
yeah, that's been modified, where basically, ultimately, the state is the ultimate arbiter regardless of what the public bodies do. And so, again, the pilot, I mean, the ITEP is one procedure, the pilot is a different procedure. It is much, much more complicated. I don't think, in just my limited knowledge about y'all's particular situation, I don't think you have enough information tonight to go forward with this without getting more information, getting more specifics. And that would be my recommendation, to get more specifics, more information. If there is going to be a pilot application, I think that information needs to be developed and the specifics need to come back before this board.
And I know we have several committee members that want to comment and ask questions, but as chairman, I want to weigh in here. And
Can I make one more comment? I mean, I'm not
Sure.
fully understanding, but in my humble opinion, the process would be for them to be with Rocky. Rocky would plow the ground with the police jury, the school board, and the sheriff and any other. I think a pilot involves all taxing bodies have to agree to it then, not just those three. But that's what I would think needs to happen, is that Rocky would come back here and say, this is what we're doing, this is what we want to do, this is what it's going to do, this is how many jobs, this money, and all that, and he would have all the facts, all the information, or should, at that point in time, much like, and I'm trying to think if there's anybody been in, we have had a couple of ITEP meetings, and that's what we did. We had all the information, all the stuff was gathered, all of us were there at one time, we all went through the information, and everybody made their vote. Now, it had to come back to the body for their individual vote, but we did all that in a committee meeting. So that's just my opinion.
thank you. To continue on, and Mr. Smith, yes, to reiterate, we are grateful for that, and don't misconstrue our questions and concerns, and the board is, for lack of better words, fearful of a couple of things. One, and 1A, losing control of a decision and losing control of revenue. That's what we're tasked with, and this committee, being the finance committee, that's what we're tasked with. We don't want to lose the ability to make a decision that could lead to revenues coming in or going away from us, and that's where a lot of these questions come from. We don't want to lose that authority and turn it over to the state, because we honestly haven't had good luck with them. And we don't want to lose that, and that's what I think a lot of people are fearful, that if we grant this letter of reapplication, we could lose that to the state, and then at the same time lose revenues. And if we lose revenues, we could potentially set a precedence, and then yes, your 80,000 does turn in possibly other organizations or corporations that come here, and now we've set a precedence, and we have to, it just kind of opens Pandora's box. So it's nothing against you guys, I promise you that. We're just trying to be good stewards to the children of this parish and to the 3,000 employees that we have here as well. And we know you guys have, workforce to look after also, as do we, and we want to be good stewards of our money and try and make sound business decisions as a committee and of course as a board. So it's not directed at you guys. It doesn't matter if it was Sierra Frac Sand or if it was John Deere or anybody. It's just the situation itself at this point, in my mind, has more questions than answers sitting out there. Just like Mr. Edmiston referenced, it's almost like this needs to go in a different direction to come back to us, so to speak. So that's just a comment I wanted to make is, you know, we're not hold hard against you guys. It's nothing like that. We're just trying to make the best decision that we as individuals that represent this board can.
And I respect that, each one, every one of y'all. And I want to thank the ones that did come up to the plant, and I wish the rest, the ones that didn't get to make it, I'll make myself available to give y'all a tour anytime, see what all we got going on also. But
Ms. Smith, I'd like you to continue your conversation, what you started a minute ago. If you would like to finish it, I would like to hear it.
I'm so confused now. I'm trying to understand it. I don't even, and I apologize one more time. I didn't mean to step on you.
No, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, it's okay.
But
No.
I appreciate you coming up and,
So we're gonna start on the end with Mr. Slack and just come back this way and finish with Mr. Cheatham. Mr. Slack.
I have an observation about what I've seen here tonight and heard, and I think we've seen red tape personified. And if you don't believe it, just look what we do. But anyway, I'm like everybody else. I don't want this man to have come to Bossier Parish, put in a plant like he put in up there, and is controlling a lot of employees that he's hired. It's been good for the community of Plain Dealing, and I think if anybody up there would hear what we're doing, they would be upset about it, because I don't think they want to lose that, and I certainly don't. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Mr. Bullard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Comments on a couple of things. First of all, and Noah, you can correct me if I'm wrong. We're looking now at a pilot matter, and as I understand it, and from what I've read, the cooperative endeavor agreement, that is the controlling document. That's where it all starts and ends. And the cooperative endeavor agreement cannot be executed by anyone other than the local entities who would be foregoing the revenue. So a pilot program ultimately has to come before the local taxing authorities and the tax recipients for approval. We all have to concur on the cooperative endeavor agreement. If we do not, that being an absolute required component, if it is flawed, then the whole agreement is flawed. So ultimately, that's going to have to be taken care of. I would think a first step would be to prepare Sierra Frac through its people would provide us with a proposed cooperative endeavor agreement. That would set forth all of the details. That would set forth exactly what they want and exactly what they would expect of the local entities. In my mind, that's just a starting point for us to have some meaningful discussions and not just be talking in terms of what ifs. And I want to support what else has been said here by multiple people. We deeply appreciate what y'all have done. You just don't know, and I'm sincere when I say that. I'm sure you probably take some of my comments as being in opposition or negative towards your operation. Nothing can be farther from the truth. I glory in an entrepreneur, and you are the epitome of an entrepreneur. And I think that's what made our country great, is people just like yourself. And you've done a great thing in the plain dealing area, and I wish you nothing but the best. At the same time, we have 3,000 employees that are looking at us. And we've already talked about the fact, we've had some issues regarding pay, and we've tried to correct it, and we have been unsuccessful. But there are also other needs beyond just a pay raise or a pay increment that they look to us to fund. And for that reason, because we have been so closely scrutinized over every stinking penny of our budget, we cannot just sit here and just arbitrarily say, fine, we'll forego 10,000 or 100,000 or $1 million. We just cannot do that without some really solid reason. And for that, because of that, we have to just constantly look and review and rethink. And so please don't interpret our comments or our questions as anything negative. And I'm speaking just for myself. I glory in what you've done. I would wish you nothing but the best, but we've got to have something concrete to look at. I think if you look back at all our discussions, that's been the question always, and that's what's come up tonight. Give us something definite. Here's what we want. Exactly. We're not saying we want just this or we want just that, but we want this, and here's how we propose for it to work out. And under this pilot program, that would require that would be embodied in the cooperative endeavor agreement. So I would think maybe a draft of that document would be a good starting point. And thank you, and I apologize for taking so much of your time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bass?
I have more questions than I have answers. The two things that I want answered most of all is, just like Mr. Bullard said, the specifics of what we're talking about, and I think, based on where Bump told us that needs to go would be to Rocky and his team to get those specifics. The other question that I have is, based on those facts and based on the precedent that the attorney gave us, do we even have the ability to do that based on what he quoted in the Constitution? So those are the two major questions that I have, are the facts and the legality of it. So without that, I'm going to reiterate, you guys have been amazing to Plain Dealing. You guys have been amazing to the people out there and the school system out there. I can't thank you enough for that. But I need more information, and I hope that doesn't put you guys in too bad of a situation from a time constraint. Bobby left, or I would ask, just as long as we got it done by December, would that tax payment that you guys are worried about coming up, would that still be, on the table if we got our answers back before them or not? I don't know the answer to that, but
He'll close these books to be open in August, and so it'd have to be done at the latest before August, because the tax rolls are closed.
well.
And then our taxes, it'll be,
Well, and one thing I hope you guys also see as a board, we are more than willing to set a meeting to have this conversation with you guys and try and accommodate whatever time frame y'all are trying to meet. We will do our best to try and make sure that we at least hear those facts when they're available, to try and meet that time constraint where at least you'll have our decision, yes or no, or whatever way that goes. Once the facts are there, the legal decision or whatever, hopefully by the time you guys will need it. And other than that, Mr. and Ms. Smith, everybody, thank you again. So can't say thank you enough.
Going right here, Mr. Good.
Brief.
Okay, yeah, we're going to go all the way around in case
Okay.
you don't have anything, just pass it along.
I just want to say, I did not get an opportunity to come out there, but I did have a colleague to come back and tell me all the good things that y'all are doing. And also, I've heard from y'all what y'all have done. And we certainly do appreciate everything that y'all are doing and trying to do. But again, as everyone has said tonight, it's just the lack of information for us to move forward. But we do not overlook what you've done and what you're trying to do. We appreciate it.
I can reiterate all that. I think I'm more confused than what I was when I walked in the door. And the sad thing is I don't think that we can provide the answers to what we need, and I don't think y'all can provide the answers to we need. I think that it's someone more than that's sitting in this room to do that. And whether that's Rocky or who that is, I think that we need to get that information. And I agree with what they've said. If we could just have that information to know what decision we're making. And I think that you would apply that to your business. I don't think that you would go into something and not knowing, vote on something that you don't know that's going to work before you do that. And I think that's why you've been so successful. So I'm, not saying no. I'm just saying I don't have enough information from whoever can answer those problems. I mean, and we have researched and we have spent hours on this. And we don't want to waste y'all's time in coming here or anything else. But anyway, I just have more questions than anything.
President Bamberg?
Yeah, I would have a couple of questions. One, if we send a letter on their behalf, is that binding that that we don't get to come back and vote on it, or can we send that and it still come back in front of this body to have a vote?
In my opinion, it's premature at this point. I think that people with the industrial development board need to be involved. It's part of the process, and it's such a pointed out.
Okay.
In my opinion, that's one with jurisprudence and.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to, I don't think we could send a binding letter, but so that was my question was, is there something we can send on their behalf to say?
Coordinate with the industrial development board people because it's a pilot. It sounds like it's going that direction now.
Yeah.
I think it's just another.
I believe that we need an AG opinion on how employees work as payment in lieu of taxes. I would suggest, it sounds like you guys need to get with Rocky. I don't think it's a long process. It just sounds like there's a couple of steps that we need to hit along the way. And I was just asking about the letter because we surely want to support you guys. And but I don't think our letter could be binding at this point. But it would just show our support that going further in the process. But we're going to have to take our attorneys, since we're not lawyers, I guess we'll take our attorneys' advice on that. And I don't know, whenever you guys want to reconvene, as far as I'm concerned, this board is here for you, and we'll get back together.
Thank you. Anything, Mr. Bacchus? Mr. Brother? You feel free to pass.
Do you want me to?
No, I just don't.
Now, I guess I'm sitting here, I'm listening to all this. It kind of sounds simpler to me. I mean, it sounds like we can't go ITEP. We need to go pilot. So it needs to be going to that committee. They're the ones that's going to answer all the questions, from my understanding. They'll come back to us, and at that point, we'll be making decisions. That's kind of what I'm getting from all of this, that we really can't do anything tonight until that committee meets and gives us the information that we're looking for. So, that's where I stand. I'm not saying yes or no. I just think that it needs to be turned over to his committee.
I'm going to swing back to Mr. Downey. I did not give him an opportunity to speak. I apologize.
I would want to remind the board that May 4th, 2019, we were delivered a message by the business community and our constituents to make do with the revenue that we had. And at that point in time, we made a commitment to our teachers that they would be our priority. And so we're in the education business, which has been stated several times. In order for us to attract and retain the best and the brightest to provide the greatest opportunity for our children, we have to protect the revenue stream that we have in place. And so I understand Sierra Frac's contribution, but at the same time, I would like for us to continue to keep our teachers in the forefront and the support and the commitment to them to be unwavering. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Dean.
I support Sierra Sand. As y'all know, they're in our area, plain dealing. They've invested large sums of money and plan on adding jobs. And before they came, what were we getting out of that? I mean, I don't see how we've lost anything. If they weren't there, we'd be losing thousands of more dollars. And I know they've answered every question that we've brought to them, and we have more questions now. So I support them wholeheartedly, and hopefully the questions that were asked tonight, we can get answers to those and move on. Because I think they're a great business, and they would like to be here, stay, and they'd add a lot to not just Plain Dealing, but to Bossier Parish.
And Mr. Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Newman, for finally letting me speak. I think you didn't want Glenn and I to speak behind each other because we're both long-winded. I left here after the last meeting and said I was for this ITEP and that I wanted to do my part to help Plain Dealing and Bossier Parish grow with business development. I think one of the concerns I have with Bossier Parish, Bossier City, is we have great schools, we have safe communities, we don't have enough businesses, therefore we don't have enough money coming in to pay for teacher pay raises and things that we need. So I wrestled with it most of the week and because I am pro-business, and I do appreciate, although I didn't get a chance to make it out there to visit with y'all, I received many phone calls of friends and business people that were talking with me about what y'all are doing in Plain Dealing. I believe I would have been for the ITEP, but I believe the pilot just brings up a lot of new concerns, and I would like to see us get an Attorney General's opinion. I'd like to have us meet with Rocky Rocket and have Rocky bring some stuff to us, and let's revisit at that time. And also, you know, I keep in mind what Mr. Downey just said, and this is where we're in a position, you know, we're up here, we're wanting to help businesses, but we got, as school board members, we have two jobs. It's to hire and fire the superintendent, and we hired this one, and I'm glad we hired this one. And then our second one is to handle the money of the parish for our schools. And this is a tough situation, I think, if it came down to a vote for everybody, because we need as much money as we can get right now. We just got through trying to ask for more money to keep from losing 200 teachers a year, and to be able to bring in some higher quality employees that other parishes are paying more than we are. And I won't continue to ramble on. I am in support and was in support of the ITEP, but I do believe we need more information. Get with the Louisiana Economic Development folks and get with the Attorney General, because I go back to what we usually say as a board. You know, we usually, especially on stuff that's outside of our sphere of what we know and deal with every day, we have to take our attorneys' advice. And our attorneys, their job is to keep us protected. And also our CFO, who I believe has spent a lot of time researching this. And I thank you for the time and effort you've put into this over the last week or so. So at this time, I don't know what the motion would be, Mr. Newman, but I would second it if that motion was to allow the Attorney General to give us some information on this and have them meet with Rocky Rocket and his group.
So it's my understanding that I think no motion is the action of the committee, but before I wrap things up and put it out there, I would like to give the folks from Sierra Frac who have sat here patiently and obliged every committee member and board member that wish to speak, I would like to also extend that same courtesy to you guys if y'all have any last words that y'all would like to share with us.
Right, I'm not going to take very much of your time because I do appreciate it. Like I said before, I'm on your side. I was there Monday night, had school board meeting Monday night, so I do understand your side. But before Sierra Frac Sand, Bossier Parish School District got $2,000 for that piece of property out there. I just want you to remember that. You got $2,000. That don't go very far on the raises that you're wanting to have. We want to partner with you. We're not asking for every bit of our taxes to go away. We're pounding the pavements every day, bringing those new customers in to bring the sales tax in so you can give those teachers the raises. I've been in a classroom. I know how important morale is for teachers. And I've been in the school board and tried to be the happy medium. Use us, but partner with us. That's all we're just asking. And we are going to make this work. And just bear with us. We're going to go, and I'm going to, it's a priority of mine because school districts, education, without kids, we can't, they're our future. So we have to make it. I kind of feel like the little spoiled child on the side going, this process has been misguided because people taking advantage of it. We're not, we promise you we're not going to take advantage of it. We're going to make it work. We're going to be the best partners there are. We're going to make Plain-Dillon School District great. We're going to make every school district great. Education is my passion. And so I don't want to ramble, but I appreciate y'all being here.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. And Mr. Smith, would either one of y'all good? You want to leave it with that?
I appreciate y'all considering, and Laura, I hope next meeting we can look at our numbers and they'll prove up the sales tax, what it is, and Lord, it's helps burden what y'all got on y'all trying to get the teachers a raise.
Sure.
And thank y'all for just giving us another
Yes, sir.
chance to look at y'all.
So I'd like to thank Mr. Skaggs for coming from the police jury. Bump, did you have anything else you'd like to offer?
Real quick, and so I've spoken with Rocky, and so he's ready to set up a meeting. With the pilot deal, this is a very new, not used very often deal. There's only a handful in the state, so the process is very vague to a lot of folks, and so this will be a working process with LED that wants to make it a new kind of tax incentive deal. As far as the letter request, would it be appropriate to send Secretary Pearson a letter basically saying what you said, that we've asked that they go meet with the local industrial park and just update him on the action you took so he didn't
Waters that we're not quite prepared to
Okay.
do so, and I can also see some head nodding from our council, and I was already in agreement with that, Mr. Noah, so rest assured. I think at this point, I think meeting with Mr. Rocket and the Industrial Control Board is, of course, the best interest of Sierra Frac, and I highly encourage that. And then those meetings will spurn additional information that can be fed to the board. And like Mr. Van Berg said, we're here for you guys. We want to help you with this. If the pilot program works and it can be beneficial to both parties, then 100% we're going to support that. But at this time, I don't think the committee or the board itself is prepared to issue any kind of written statement for anything until we get some additional information, and I see our council completely agrees with that. So as you know, we are very adherent to their recommendations. So Mr. Noah, Mr. Self, anything from council, anything? So Mr. Smith, I highly encourage you and your crew to get with Mr. Rocket, and Mr. Skaggs there already has something, looks like in the works for you guys. And please bring it right back to us. And, you know, I want to see the pilot program work. I think it's something that would be beneficial, but at the same time, it created more questions than anybody has answers for, be it here or anywhere else. So with that said, I don't think there are any motions out on the table at this time, and that will conclude our Finance Committee meeting for today. Thank you all for coming.